Few weeks ago, Genshin Impact released a new video titled Behind the Scenes of Genshin Impact. Let's start with Nod Krai. I feel like this is a perfect video for this channel because it covers the lore side of Genshin Impact and addresses the criticism along with their work in progress making the new area. Surprisingly enough, this video caused a fair share of controversy as some people are not happy with how the direction of Nod Krai is going to be. For example, some people claim that Nod Krai will be a huge filler patch, and Genshin Impact sort of implied that the whole update for patch 6 will focus on Nod Krai. That statement alone made people think that Nod Krai is going to be Genshin Impact's version of AMPHOREUS, which is notoriously known for its very long story each update that lasts around 6 to 8 hours per update. We're going to address the lore side of this video, the work in progress, and my thoughts on it as what I thought about this video. As always, don't forget to give this video a like and comment so the channel can be noticed by the algorithm. My name is Glitchxcity and I make lore and commentary videos on this channel to keep you company. So the first thing they address is how the story in Genshin Impact has a lot of loose threads, or in other words, there are plenty of plot holes that you can only find the answer from in books, enemy description, or even the artifact lore. Some of the most relevant lore bombs that you can find are such as the Byakuyakuku collection, more specifically the Book of Before Sun and Moon. Then we have Flowers of Paradise Lost artifact set, the Aldavari novel enemy description, Rune's notes in the Tower of Whipsissimus, and the most recent one being the finale of the Deep Galleries artifact set, where it addresses the story behind the Three Moon Sisters from Moonlit to Babu Forest and the records of Jueyun. In order to fill in those loose threads, they are planning to face the problem by having one specific place where they can give the information from these books to the players, and that place is Nod Krai. They also address, instead of making quests like previous versions based on the specific nation, like its Mondstadt's Archon Quest, Liyue's Archon Quest, etc., they want to make Nod Krai's version as faction-based quests, and entirely of batch 6 will be titled as Song of the Welkin Moon, which lasts for around a year. Now this is where the AMPHOREUS 2.0 claim starts to kick in. Let's move on. So they also said Nod Krai's story will mostly relate to the moon. Like I just mentioned, the moon is a very important part of Teyvat because these 3 moons actually existed way before the 7 elements. We have so many moon symbolism in this game, from the Bell Princess and the 6 Pygmies, the login screen, the Spiral Abyss, and a lot of murals in games such as Dragon Spine, Tsurumi Island, Otskanatlan, huge moon symbolism in the heart of City of Tallinn. And recently, we are hinted a moon eater beast called Bakunawa. So according to the devs, they are planning to use this moon symbolism while separating the concept of both Nod Krai and the moon while in development. If you don't get what that means, basically Nod Krai is going to be in its own, but the factions that are gathering in Nod Krai are coming for this power specifically. The concept of the moon applies to everything that is related to Teyvat because the moon is part of the world, not just in Nod Krai. But that said, Nod Krai and the moon will have strong relations together, especially that the people of the Frost Moon Scions are the people who praises the moon. According to the devs, the Frost Moon Scions are inspired by the Celtic mythology called Druids. The Druids are people that can manifest the power of nature, and they also praise celestial bodies such as the moon and the stars as their gods. It seems the concept of the Frost Moon Scions is going to be similar to that, and it's possible that the people of Hyperborea is going to be just like that. The finale of the Deep Galleries kinda implied them to be that way anyway, considering that they do praises the moon, so it is possible. Anyways, they revealed that the Frost Moon Scions are the people that can wield the strange power that Mavuika mentioned at the end of the Archon Quest. They also mentioned the people of Dragon Spine and Tsurumi Island also worship the moon, which I was like, they did? Then I remembered the people of Hyperborea worship the moon, so I was like, oh, they did. That said, I think this is a confirmation that Enkanomiya, Tsurumi Island, Dragon Spine, and Hyperborea are indeed a part of that unified civilization. Moving on from that, the devs revealed that the Fatui's goal to go to Nod Krai is to steal the moon's power. Basically, they became the Gru of Genshin Impact. So it says the Gru and the Fatui members are the minions. I made a video speculating what the Fatui and the Tsaritsa want, so you can check that out if you're interested. They also mentioned the Voynich Guild, which is stationed in Nasha Town. The organization inside the Voynich Guild, the Curatorium of Secrets, will accept commissions that can be solved either secretly or even the most difficult ones. I mentioned in my last video that there is a boss lady in the Curatorium of Secrets per the web event, so it's safe to assume that the boss lady of this faction will be playable. They also mentioned the Wild Hunt and the Lightkeepers. They mentioned the Wild Hunt is an abyssal organization that is inspired by Norse folk legend of the same name. There are ghosts and supernatural beings that race across the night sky as a sign of bad omen, which is basically the same thing mentioned in the Long Night's Oath artifact set. They followed that up saying Nod Krai's Wild Hunt invasions came after Khaenri'ahn Cataclysm, which confirms my speculation from my last video that there are two Wild Hunt invasions in Nod Krai, the first during the Cataclysm and the second one is after the Cataclysm. Now we're entering my favorite part of the section, and that is the artistic process in making of Nod Krai. Are there any real-world archetypes that can encompass the design of this region? So basically, they said no, but there are still other real-world references. They're not making the civilization of Nod Krai, but this time they're making people of Nod Krai. When I try to process those words, I think I understand what that means because all this time, we are entering each region with an already developed civilization like the people of Natlan and their tribes, and the people of Fontaine, etc. They already have their culture, they have a distinct design which is different from Nod Krai, where the main premise of this land is for people all around Teyvat to gather here for a certain goal. The devs also revealed that the premise of Nod Krai is more so the people versus nature type of story, as in how the people of Frostmoon Science deal with the other main focus of this land, the Fatui. This includes the statue of the Seven as well, since they said the statue will be different from the usual statue of the Seven that we usually face, in order to show which side will Nod Krai choose. Will they choose the Saritsa or the moon? Then there's the $1 million problem that they're addressing, which is the jarring difference in technology of Teyvat. So basically, the players expected the world of Teyvat to be medieval when it comes to the technology. However, as we go to each nation, we will see difference and slowly witness the advancement of technology in each nation, such as Sumeru with their Dendro Wi-Fi, Fontaine with the steampunk technology, and Natlan with the draconic technology. Nod Krai will have technology that is going to be more advanced than the previous nations because of the amount of factions available. Finally, they talk about the future of Genshin Impact. To sum it up, they value players' feedbacks and always do their research on the mainstream. The devs aim to innovate and evolve Nod Krai to be new, exciting, imaginative, and satisfactory for players. That's pretty much sums up the whole video, and I'm excited for Nod Krai. Now entering my own opinion. Most of these are of course going to be subjective, so be sure to know what you're watching. Also, if you made it this far, then I assume you liked this video enough. I want to let you know that I made this video all by myself from the script to the final product, so liking, commenting, and subscribing to this channel will help this channel a lot getting pushed by the algorithm. With that said, let's continue. So if you're not a Honkai Star Rail player, AMPHOREUS is currently the main focus of the patch. Something like how we Genshin Impact players call it nations, but in Honkai Star Rail, we call it planets. In Genshin Impact, we are in Natlan, and in Honkai Star Rail, we are in AMPHOREUS. AMPHOREUS itself has its own issues, whether that's storytelling or gameplay, and I think most of you already know the terrible power creep issues that Honkai Star Rail players are experiencing, but that's a topic for a different video. The point is, AMPHOREUS' storytelling is, let's say, strange. The pacing is really slow, the quests last for too long, and it feels like we are playing an entirely new storyline in a different game because they don't touch the fundamental topic of Honkai Star Rail, that being the Aeons and Paths until very recently. Just like Nod Krai, AMPHOREUS will last for a whole year, and we are currently in patch 3.2 where it's almost midway to the entirety of AMPHOREUS questline. If you ask me, when it comes to Nod Krai, I think this is a good decision. Keeping Song of Welkin Moon around for a year sounds great. It'll give us breathing room we need to tie up all of those loose threads plot-wise. The Moonlord definitely needs a deep dive since it's such a big deal in Genshin Impact, and the context around it ranges from ambiguous to confusing at worst. They also say the focus of Nod Krai is not about the place itself, but specifically on the factions. In the lore, Jean and Barbara's mother Frederica was the second in command in Farkas' Grand Expedition, however she was later sent to Dormant Port after finding more information about Nod Krai. In Marichivari, there's a monster named Bakunawa, which is a moon-eating dragon according to Philippines mythology. With that said, it's safe to say that patch 6.x will not only happen in Nod Krai, but the rest of Teyvat. That alone is already different from AMPHOREUS, where the main focus is the world of AMPHOREUS and how isolated the world is from the rest of the cosmos. Since the goal of Nod Krai is to fill in the holes, then Nod Krai will definitely be the most important part of Teyvat's storyline than anything else, since we'll be talking about Teyvat as a whole, not the problem from within each nation like how we deal with the forbidden knowledge in Sumeru, Nodland's war with the Abyss, etc. But this also comes with one thing in mind, and that is every single patch has to be a main patch. That means no filler patch, no filler story, no filler events. I mean, of course, there will be filler events, but it also has to be along with the main story. So yeah, it's gonna be pretty tough if you ask me. But again, they made this decision, and I'm sure this is a heavy decision for them because, you know, they have to keep the game alive and also they have to keep the game engaged to the players. Especially that Snezhnaya in itself has pretty much strong connection with the Moon lore. So of course, the expectations has to be high. I'm not being apologetic saying that, it is what it is. Not only are the expectations high, but they also need to learn what is lacking in AMPHOREUS. You see, despite the unnecessary long Trailblaze quest, the story itself is actually really good. I personally don't like patch 3.1 where Mighty and Triby's backstory become the main highlight of the patch because not only the story is so long, but there's just a lot of unnecessary dialogues. For example, when they're trying to find Anaxa in Grove of Epiphany, Cersei is there to guide Castoris and the Trailblazer, but not only the puzzles take too long, but also their dialogues are so unnecessarily long, and it doesn't help with how long Castoris speak in Japanese dub. You're telling me that at the end of the 3.1 quest that Anaxa is already dead? Gee, I wonder why. But I have to admit, 3.2 quest is actually an improvement because the quest is actually quite interesting for me to stay and watch. I wouldn't say it's the best, but it's good enough. I still find Pentacoli to be so big and in my opinion, one of the best Hoyoverse stories so far, but that's just my opinion. It could also be because AMPHOREUS is not yet on its big storyline just yet, and I think 3.3 quest is going to be an improvement, but that's also part of the problem because if 3.3 is gonna be good, then the players that haven't done AMPHOREUS up until that point will have a 24 hours worth of quests to catch up, and a lot of part of that storyline are filled with filler conversations. When I try to find example of quests in Genshin that justify the long duration, Fontaine's final act is the one because that quest took a very long time, around 8 hours mind you, but there's a lot of things that happen in that span of 8 hours that it's justified. From how Poisson lost a lot of people, Farina is exposed, Fusselor's execution, I was locked in. Even though Natlan is not the best when it comes to the plot, for example, I don't like how Mary Sue-ish Mavuika is portrayed, at least the actions are good enough for me to stay and enjoy. In fact, Act 1 to Act 4 are actually really good. It's just that Act 5 felt rushed in some way. It's giving Inazuma patch but better because Act 1 and 2 of Inazuma Archon Quest is actually really good. But back to Nod Krai, if they're going to make it a whole year, I am okay with that, and I won't be surprised if each Archon Quest will last around 7 to 8 hours as well. But if they want to do that, then make it interesting and make the in-game models do something else other than the default movements. I think it's also part of what makes AMPHOREUS so unenjoyable, and it's how the angles are so boring, the characters only do default movements, they often black screen with white text. But don't worry, recently they improved it with white text and black text. And it feels like a visual novel with very minimal movements and very minimal choices. Although in Genshin, they've been adding plenty of movements recently with some of the newer quests, so I think that's first part done. Dawei did admit he was not satisfied with AMPHOREUS because there's just so many ideas being crammed into one with very little restrictions, and he did say the next few patches will only focus on 1 or 2 main plots, which it was a good improvement in 3.2, but I hope they take that lesson and not only implement it in Honkai Star Rail, but also on their other games as well. Before we end the video, I want to add another thing, and that is the technological advancement in Teyvat. I think it's fine, and honestly it's good that they acknowledge how jarring Natlan's technology is. They mentioned, however, that Nod Krai's technology will be more advanced, and honestly, I am a bit worried because when they say advanced, how advanced will it be? It's funny because Natlan's world building is actually really good, but what ruins it is the playable casts, especially how strange some of the design choices are. DJ, motorbike, pixels, It's definitely some of the most unexpected things you would see in Genshin, but not in a good way. They even mentioned that the players have an impression that the game is in medieval times, which is fair point, because we did start in a nation that barely has any technology, and that is Mondstadt and Liyue. To be fair, I expect them to have technological advancement, let alone that different nations have different cultures, and Fontaine is one of them. But if they want to do that, then at least make it make sense. It's fine to have holograms or technologies, but it also comes with how the game visualizes those elements and how they're going to justify that. For example, Sumer's Wi-Fi, the Akasha, is the first time we see such an advancement, but we learned that this Wi-Fi was created by Rukkhadevata and powered by the Gnosis. Given the power of Dendro in the game is heavily associated with knowledge, and Rukkhadevata herself is the avatar of Irminsul, it makes a lot of sense. Natlan is not like that because most of the context we got is that it's ancient dragon technology. But we don't get more context other than dragon civilizations are more advanced than human technology. It still doesn't explain why Ahau is so pixelated and why Mavuika's motorbike is that way when dragons at that time don't even have legs to begin with. Given yes, it is also modified, but how are they supposed to know that? Like, how the dragons of that time even have motorbikes that look similar like Mavuika's? But based from what I see from their leaked concept art that they showed in the video, I am confident that Nod Krai's visuals will look good because from what I see, they do look like something that we are familiar with. The first thing that came to my mind when I see the machines in the leaked concept art is Dragon Spine, and again, visuals are always important and context always matters. Overall, I'm excited for Nod Krai, but there are a fair amount of things that can be considered. What are your thoughts on Nod Krai? Let me know in the comments. Tjena!